Hello, my friends. It is 4 o'clock, and here we are. Just get started here in a second. Make sure you can hear me. Hello, my. Looks like you can hear me. Okay. Um, so today I just wanted to pop in here, start this as like kind of a regular thing, talk about different things I'm learning as I'm coaching and I don't want to turn that on. Okay. Just try again getting my technology straight and just testing things out, doing things new things. So, um just thought I'd just pop in here for a few minutes and kind of talk to you about buffering, what it is, why we do it, and how to allow an urge. So, buffering is any activity you do that produces a net negative result. So, for example, if on your calendar at 3 o'clock you were going to be working on your business or doing some project or report or whatever it was that you had intended to do at 3 o'clock, and 3 o'clock comes around and you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds hard. I don't know how to do it. I just don't want to. The couch looks so inviting, or it's a beautiful sunny day, or whatever it is. Or maybe you want to go grab something to eat or have a drink. Anything we do to avoid a negative feeling, right? That produces a net negative result. So the negative result would be you don't do what you intended to do. Okay. We think sometimes, oh, we just have terrible willpower, or, we're lazy, or we just, it was just too hard. We just don't want to do it. And so we avoid that thing. And what I want to remind you is totally human. Our brains are hardwired to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and expend minimal energy, right? So we like to either just keep doing the same things over and over because it's easy, our brains know how to do it, or we don't want to expend a lot of energy to put into something that seems hard or we're telling ourselves is hard. Um, Also could be if you're feeling sad or lonely or frustrated or even bored, right? We want to we want to avoid that negative feeling that we're having because of whatever it is we're thinking. We don't realize that. We think we just have a feeling. We think our feelings just come upon us. All of our feelings are created by our thoughts. So you might have a thought that, I'm all alone, and then you feel lonely. You might want to buffer that feeling with something. You may think, oh, this project is really hard. I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it. So you feel overwhelmed or confused or frustrated, and you want to go do something else instead, right? And you think maybe it's even, and it doesn't even have to be something really negative. It could be you go clean your kitchen, right? You're like, okay, I'm just going to go clean the kitchen because, and then you justify it in your mind. Well, the kitchen needs to be clean, and it's my job to do it, and and it's okay because it needs to be done, and I can do that other thing later, right? So those are some examples of buffering, and you can buffer with even what you might call healthy activity. You can buffer with taking walks or exercise, or drinking a cup of herbal tea, right? So maybe you think, well, when I'm feeling stressed, I like to have a cup of herbal tea. It really calms me down. And that's perfectly fine. But what I want to offer to you is that when you solve internal problems with external solutions, you become dependent on those external solutions. When you solve internal problems with internal solutions, you become independent, right? So you're like, well, I have a cup of herbal tea. It really helps relax me. That's great. But what about when you're really upset, really frustrated, something, some really big emotions? There's not enough herbal tea that's going to help you with that, right? So, it's fine, all these lovely things, take a bath, scented candles, all these lovely external things that do help us, of course. But when we rely on them, we are not keeping our power. We're not independent of those external things. So, so when you want to uh, when you want to buffer, oftentimes, then we have an urge. Okay, so let's talk about urges. We have an urge to do something different. So let's say you get home after a long day, and when you tell yourself it's been a long, frustrating day, of course you're going to feel frustrated and exhausted and tired, or whatever it is that you feel. And you think, well, I'm going to have a glass of wine, right? I need a glass of wine to relax. And when you tell yourself that, um, you create an urge, right? So then we have this urge, especially if we have a habit. If we've developed a habit of doing the same thing, our brain tells us, oh, it's time to have that wine, right? And so you create this desire, this urge for this end of the day glass of wine. And um, if you don't want to do that, you think we just have to answer an urge. Okay, we think there's just, you either have to respond to it by having the glass of wine, you have to avoid it by maybe going and taking that hot bubble bath instead, or resist it where you're just kind of white knuckling it and thinking, oh, I can't have my wine, I can't have my wine, right? But the option, the optimal option is to allow the urge. Okay, so how we do that is we don't react to it. We don't give into it, right? We don't resist it and we don't avoid it. We just process it through. So processing an urge is just like processing any emotion. You feel it. You allow it in. So think of an urge, resisting an emotion or an urge like a beach ball. You're in a pool and you have a beach ball and you're pressing that beach ball under the water. And at first it's not too bad, but then it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and eventually it just flies out of the water, right? Or I like this one. I think of like a server in a restaurant with like a swinging door into the kitchen. And you've got one server on one side pushing to get into the dining room, and you've got the other server on the other side pushing, and you can't open the swinging door until one person just lets go, and the other one just kind of flies into the room, right? Just kind of flows into the room, and it's okay. When you allow in that urge and say, oh, I'm noticing that I'm having an urge to drink that glass of wine, and I'm choosing not to have that wine, I'm just going to allow the urge. So you notice it in your body. You can just sit with it. Go ahead and sit with it. Just feel it. Um, you'll know you're resisting it when you start to feel tense, you're checking the clock, you're like, how long is it going to take to process this urge? And that's when you're white knuckling it, you're trying to use willpower, and willpower just doesn't, it's not a lasting um, technique to use with anything. Once you start allowing the urge, it could take anywhere from a couple seconds or 30 seconds up to 5, 10, 20 minutes. It could take a while depending on how your body is conditioned for that glass of wine. I'm kind of focusing on the one thing right now. So what you want to do is just allow it. And the more and more and more you allow the urge, let it process through without reacting to it, without responding, without resisting or avoiding, the easier it's going to get. And eventually you're going to get to a point where you don't even reach for that glass of wine. I promise you. So if you do that and allow 100 urges, you're going to be a whole different person at the end of it. So what you do is you can take a piece of notebook paper and you can list 1 through 100 and start allowing urges. Now, what that does is our brain thrives on reward. Our brain loves reward. So the more our brain says, "Hey, I want a glass of wine," and you're like, "Okay," and you have the wine, the more it's going to want it. It creates that over desire, right? So you have to train your brain that it's not going to get that reward, right? It's our animal brain, it's our primal brain, right? Um, and it doesn't matter, like, what was I trying to say? I had another story in my head there for a second, but we'll stick with this one. So, and when I say like the brain wants rewards, so if you don't have so if you have that urge for the glass of wine and you say, well, I don't want the wine, I'm going to go take a bubble bath instead, or even a glass of herbal tea instead, you're still rewarding your brain for that urge. That's why we don't want to substitute out something. We want to learn to just allow the urge. And you feel it in your body. You can talk it through even out loud or in your head. And you can say, oh, I notice this urge. I feel it here. You can name it. You can feel where it's at in your body. And when it's through, you can go ahead and reward yourself by writing on that line. So you've got your 100 urge notebook, you've got your piece of paper with 100 urges listed out, and one by one, you start filling it in. And then your brain's going to be like, oh, yeah, this is fun. Let's see how many 100 urges I can fill in. So that's a reward for your brain, right? Your brain also likes accomplishment. So if you can reward it by allowing an urge and then writing it out, it's a beautiful thing. And I have this urge jar that I have used in the past. There's 100 glass beads. Okay. So you put the beads in a little bag. You can get your own little glass jar. You can get 100 little beads. And every time you allow an urge, you just drop it in the jar and you'll watch the jar fill up. And again, that's another reward for your brain. Now, you can use this, it doesn't have to be for wine. You can use this for, overeating. Every time you have an urge to eat more than what you planned or eat something off of your plan. And we can talk about overeating and food protocols as well. Um, but there are 4 steps to if you want to stop over drinking or stop overeating even. The first step is you're going to plan 24 hours in advance if you're going to drink or not. And if you want to have a drink, write it on your plan. Perfect. No problem. If you want to have 2 drinks, it doesn't matter. But when the next day comes around and you have that 1 or 2 drinks that you planned and you want another one, that's when you don't want to give in to your urge. That's when you want to allow the urge. Okay? Same thing with food. Um, so first step, write it down the day before. What am I going to drink or what am I not going to drink? Right? And next day comes around, you do it. You drink only that or eat only that or whatever it is that you're cutting down your desire for. And then the third step, you have to allow the urge and then just repeat. And it's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to sit with an urge. The more you do it, the more you reward yourself with a bead or with writing it out, the more your brain is going to stop desiring that thing. So that is what I have been working on. Let me know if questions come up for you on this, if it's something you want to start, if there's something you're doing in your life that you're doing more of than you want to, or maybe you're doing less. Maybe there is a project you want to complete, but you keep buffering by watching Netflix, right? You're like, I just keep avoiding it. That's also an urge because you want to avoid a negative emotion, right? We want that glass of wine to relax us because we are thinking that we've had a long, hard day, right? But if you weren't even thinking that you had a human day full of human emotions, right? You could come home and you could be like, "Oh, I noticed I want a glass of wine, but I'm going to just allow that urge and then process it through. I'm not going to have that wine." I'm not saying you can't have wine. I'm just saying if you want to stop doing anything, that is the process. So, thanks so much for popping in. And let me know if anything comes up. I will see you next week here at the same time. And I will share some more things that I'm learning in my certification class. All right, and I'm applying them to my life too. I should say that this jar, I did fill it up with allowed urges. And oh, one of the coaches I follow who talks about allowing urges and does this, um, for every bead, you could be like, that's 20 calories if it's overeating, or whatever. Or maybe it's a drink. Every time you have an urge and you don't drink, this is 100 drinks you could cut down on. The next thing I think I'm going to use it for is biting my nails. I bite my nails a lot. So, all right. Thanks so much, everyone. I don't think, see, I'm still experimenting with how I can be in here if I can see Facebook while I'm talking to you. So funny. All right. Oh, I see Renee and Dawn are here. I can't see if there's any comments. So, all right. Thanks for letting me experiment on you again. And love you all. Have a wonderful week, friends. And reach out to me if you have any questions or you're struggling with anything. And I'd love to help you through it, give you the tools that I'm using to really create an amazing life where I'm not at the beck and call of all my urges. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.